Minnesota. Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Chairman. It is abundantly clear that the cynical work of the majority party on this committee is now being expanded and weaponized by the administration seeking to squash dissent. We are seeing the heavy hand of the state through this administration and the body being brought down against students and faculty for engaging in protected speech. We saw this in the case of Mahmoud Khalil, who on March 8th became one of the first student activists to be detained by ICE, despite not being criminally charged and despite the agents lying about having a warrant. We saw this in the case of Mohsen Mahwadi, who was abducted by ICE at a citizenship naturalization interview for his role in campus protest. We saw this in the case of Romesa Ozturk, who was accosted in broad daylight by a group of masked and unidentified agents after writing a critical article in her student newspaper last year. And there have been more. Georgetown professor Badar Khan Suri, PhD candidate Ranjani Srinivazan, a 21-year-old student Yunsan Jang, and many more. Political protests, anti-war protests, pro-Palestinian protests, this is all protected speech under the First Amendment, regardless of citizenship status. Using immigration authorities to target, abduct, and illegally detain non-citizens for their activism is clear violation of their rights and a hallmark of an authoritarian government. As Mahmoud Khalil wrote, from inside the Louisiana Detention Center, where he remained for 60 days. Who has the right to have rights? And as Mohsen Mahwadi wrote after being freed from detention, when they look at my case, all Americans should ask themselves, what is left of our democracy and who will be targeted next? In 1987, almost 40 years ago, 8 immigrants in Los Angeles were arrested as a result of their pro-Palestinian activism, in a shockingly similar circumstances as the arrests and the abductions by ICE that we are seeing today. Professor Cole, you legally represented the LA 8 for 20 years against the US government. After the charges were dismissed, the judge called the proceedings an embarrassment to the rule of law. What similarities have you seen between that Cold War era case and the cases we are seeing today? And what findings were made at the time regarding the First Amendment rights of non-citizens?
Thank you for that question. There are many parallels. The charges actually against the group of Palestinian students back then, the initial charges were being advocates of world communism. So the McCarthyism trope was used against them at that time. We challenged that provision of the McCarran-Walter Act in court, arguing that all people in the United States have First Amendment rights, whether you're a citizen or a non-citizen. The Supreme Court has said even corporations have speech rights because the First Amendment protects speech, not speakers. And the court agreed and struck down that provision of the McCarran-Walter Act, saying all persons, including foreign nationals in this country, have the same First Amendment rights. Mahmoud Khalil has the same First Amendment rights. Badar Khan Suri has the same First Amendment rights. And yet this administration is targeting them for nothing more than speaking out in ways that the administration disagrees with. That is contrary to the core principle of the First Amendment. In the same way that the effort to use charges of anti-Semitism to target universities and try to micromanage how they discipline particular incidents is contrary to the core conception of the First Amendment.
Mr. Cole, it is refreshing, Professor Cole, it's refreshing to have a witness who understands the illegitimate McCarthy-like approach the majority is taking on this committee. For them, it is easy to target people's rights to speech and to assemble when they advocate for Palestine. It is easy to dismiss the rights of those who are not yet citizens. Professor Cole, from your decades of experience as First Amendment scholar and champion, does it ever stop at the easy targets?
No, it doesn't stop at the easy targets. And you can, again, look back at McCarthyism. It was targeted at a problem. There were communists in this country that were spying for our enemy. But that's not what the McCarthyism was about. It was not about identifying those spies. It ultimately reached millions of Americans who were subjected to investigations. People lost their jobs, were blacklisted, merely for their ideas.
The gentlelady's time's expired.
Yeah. And I will say, those who don't learn from history repeat it. So thank you so much.
I thank the gentlelady. Now I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr.